Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas, on Friday, December the 6th, with our good friend George Rodriguez from South Texas. George, how you doing?
Real good, real good. It's kind of cold by
A
our
little chilly
standards.
up there. A little
By
chilly up
our
here too.
standards, yes.
Yes, no, it's a little chilly up here as well. Good day to wear a sweater, as your mother used to tell you. Well, let's talk a little bit about what's happening in Texas. We talked last time about the Texas House Speaker and some of the politics of that, but at least we know now that the last House Speaker, Mr. Phelan, is not going to be the next one because he has dropped out. He says he's not going to do it. Now, my sense is that he didn't have the votes. Is that your sense, George?
Definitely. There has been an ongoing political war in Austin between Abbott and Paxton, the Attorney General, between the governor and the Attorney General versus Mr. Phelan and the House. And this war erupted into open political warfare during this past election, and he lost several of his friends. Consequently, he lost a lot of support in the state house,
Yeah.
and I think he saw the handwriting on the wall.
Right. Now, some of that battle had to do with vouchers, if I recall, right?
It was a
Uh,
lot of stuff. What had
yeah,
happened? What had happened? And we
yeah,
can we can say it's politics or not, but what had happened was that he had won. The speaker had won his speakership because he had uh, been able to corral 100% of the Democrat House votes. And with all of those votes, plus a few Republican votes, he was able to get elected speaker. Now, the question has always been, well, what is he giving the Democrats? And obviously, what he was giving the Democrats, one of them was support against or opposition to vouchers, which is
right.
something that the governor wanted.
Now, who do you think? Because they're not going to have to take this vote really till January, right? When they come together. But who are some of the names that you see, forging ahead and potentially being the next House Speaker? Because if it's just going to be Republicans, he better have Republican support. Because if he loses any Republicans, I don't think a lot of Democrats are going to support a more conservative Republican. So who are some of the names that you're hearing about, George?
Well, the number one person is a gentleman named Cook out of
Right,
North Texas.
right,
And Representative Cook, House Representative Cook, um, has been able to corral almost 100% of the Republicans, and if he does that, well, then the Republicans outnumber
right.
the Democrats, and he will be the speaker. He might lose a couple of Republicans, but even if he loses, he can afford to lose up to 5 Republicans
Hmm.
and still win the speakership.
Right. And what do we know about Mr. Cook? I don't know much about him. He's North Texas, but he's not close to me up here. So
Yeah,
what do we know about him?
he's a rancher, oil man. He
Right.
is
Okay.
very much a conservative, a Trump conservative. He is young. He's mid 40s, and he has been very, very supportive of the border initiative of the governor, something that Phelan was not.
Right. Right.
He has also been very, very outspoken in favor of vouchers, even though he's in a rural area, something that Phelan was not. And he is comparably speaking a younger politician, but he's well seasoned in the state house.
Right. And he does seem to have a good reputation from, I've been able to read a little bit about him. He does have a good reputation. And I have to believe, George, that this vouchers issue is really the deal breaker with the governor. That
I
if
think
you,
so.
yeah,
I think
if you're not going to support his vouchers, then you're going to get a primary challenge. I think we saw that the last time around, and if that didn't that didn't scare some Republicans because I mean the governor was very successful in eliminating from the House several GOP members who didn't support him on vouchers. I mean, I think he cleaned out just about all of them, certainly enough to have the
Well,
votes
yeah,
for the
he
voucher.
did.
Yeah.
In fact, he did clean them all out except for Cook.
Okay. Well,
Cook
he
was
didn't
the only,
have
I
to.
mean, not Cook, Phelan.
Phelan,
Phelan was
right?
the only one. Phelan was the only one that he did not defeat. And that was a bare minimum. I mean, by the skin of your teeth that
Right.
he was not able to.
Yeah, that was not a big victory for Phelan, which I hope he got the message
Well, I think
that
he
he
did.
was not. Yeah, I think he did. So he's out. He's out. But anyway, so it looks like Speaker Cook is going to be the name of the
David
fellow.
Cook.
David Cook. It looks like he's going to be the next guy. Well, let's talk a little bit about this Biden pardon that everybody's talking about going back to January 1st, 2014, issuing a pardon. I obviously have never, not an expert on how these pardons are done. I understand, of course, that the president has that power. But if I understood from previous presidencies, is that there's usually a process, usually a request that is made. There's a committee or something of people who get together, collect information, and then go to the president with the information. That's been always what I understood the process is. And one case comes to mind, George, maybe you remember this. This is President George W. Bush, who pardoned a man in California, I think it was, who had been in jail for quite some time and was very sick, was dying of cancer. And his family had requested to get him out so they could spend maybe the last 6 or 9 months of his life with the family. And President Bush, if I recall correctly, didn't pardon him, commuted his sentence, which is a different thing, of course.
Yeah, right.
And he was able to get out early. But I have always thought that there's like a process here, the paperwork that they have to go through, that very rarely does the president do it unilaterally without anybody else involved in the process. Is that your understanding of it, having worked in the White House?
Yes, I mean the process is paperwork intensive. You've got to there has to be justification shown for commuting or pardoning the sentence. Now it is political because the only people that are involved in the process are political appointees. Now that's the one thing. And consequently, it is their political recommendation, even though they will not admit that. There is input, of course, from career attorneys and from folks within the justice system, et cetera, et cetera. There's all of that. However, ultimately, it is a political decision.
Right.
There have been times like with Clinton, when convicted cop killers were pardoned. There was an instance under Carter where some Puerto Ricans that had been involved in a terrorist attack.
The attack on the Capitol against Vice President Truman, I think, right? Yeah.
And they were pardoned. So I mean, there's always been some kind of controversy to a degree. But never has it been somebody that's your family.
Right.
Never.
Well, here's another thing, too, George, that I, just again reading about these pardons over the years, or as they came up. Usually, the person who got pardoned was already in jail. It wasn't like someone who had not gone to jail.
Yes.
I mean, there's only one exception to all of this, and that was President Nixon in 1974.
Exactly.
Who was pardoned. But that is such a unique situation. You cannot compare it to anything else because that was a former president who resigned in disgrace. And as it turned out, President Ford didn't get anything out of that pardon. In fact, politically, it probably hurt him in 1976. So he didn't get anything out of it. And neither did President Nixon. I mean, what did he get out of it? Nothing. He was already in disgrace. So that is the only one where I felt that maybe, or where I remember that the person had not served time. But in this case, I mean, you've got Hunter Biden getting a pardon going back to January 1st, 2014. Well, what was he doing back then? We thought that he wasn't doing anything. Well, at least we were told.
The outrage, to me, the most offensive thing is we have videos of his behavior,
Yes, I mean that's right.
and you go, oh, gosh, how can you deny? How can you uh, pardon somebody? Well, first of all, pardon them for what? For their behavior. And if you're going to pardon that kind of behavior, then what else are you going to do?
Well, and then just the whole thing is so obscene, to go back like that and basically say, we're going to pardon you from the first. I hope that Hunter doesn't plan to get in trouble after this because the pardon is not going to apply to anything else he does. But I just thought politically it was a bad decision by
It
President Biden,
was,
and I
and it
will
was
tell you,
poorly defended.
it was, and I will tell you, I hope they don't do this pre-pardoning or pardoning of Liz Cheney. I'm not sure what for, and Schiff and Fauci. I hope they don't do that because George, that could actually be he may be forced to resign after that because he would be so disgraced that I think he would almost have to. But I know you're short of time, so let me get to another topic, and we'll get into more of this stuff the next time around. But tariffs and Mexico have been in the news lately. And I'm just curious, what are you hearing from the Border Patrol people, the people that you interact with down there? What are you hearing about this idea of using tariffs to get something from Mexico, George? What are you hearing?
Well, first of all, it is a tool,
Right.
a weapon, if you want, which it seems to have worked immediately. In fact, before he even threatened it, when he was on the campaign, he said it. Before he even gets into office to implement it, Mexico's already beginning to react. We've heard of two in the past 24 hours, two caravans that have been broken up by the Mexican police in Mexico. So there's a reaction that's going on already.
There's certainly a reaction from Canada.
And
I mean,
Canada,
because they,
that we're talking about Mexico, but Canada was the first one to react to it. Canada came.
That's right.
The Canadian Prime Minister came to Mar-a-Lago to meet with Trump.
That's right.
It is a threat. Now, of course, like all insecure people, there are folks who are already screaming and yelling. It's going to hurt. The governor of California was at the border wall yesterday afternoon, claiming that it was a betrayal of businesses for him to put in. He hasn't put the tariffs in. He's only threatened it.
Right.
And I'm not sure what betrayal the governor is acknowledging when he has let millions of people into his own state. So
right, and I think if the governor of California is worried about a border, he should be worried about the border going into Nevada and into Arizona, because that's where people are coming out of California and moving out. My feeling is that the tariffs is, like you say, a negotiating tool. I think it would have some kind of an impact on, assuming that it went all the way, which
if it went all the way, definitely there would
there would be an impact. It would certainly increase prices for some things, but it would also hurt Mexico. I think it would be a bigger impact on Mexico because they depend a lot more on exports to the United States than we do. And of course, the other big thing are the remittances. That hasn't come up, but that's another power or another weapon that the president has with Mexico. So I tell you what, George, I know you're a little bit short of time today. We certainly appreciate your being with us. I'm not sure if we will speak. I think we'll speak before Christmas because this story of the border will always.
We do. We need to. Two of my best friends have been nominated. Well, they've already been. They've been given. The borders are Tom Homan, and yesterday the new Customs and Border Commissioner.
I saw that. I saw an interview with him today. He looks pretty sharp.
He is.
But the next time we get together, let's talk a little bit about how that policy, how exactly the deportations will happen, and also the sanctuary city policy and challenges that could go both ways on that. So let's talk about that the next time. But I do thank you for joining us again on short time. I appreciate it. Always great to have your input. And thank you so much, as always, George, for being a part of it.
Thank you.
All right. Anytime. Our good friend, George Rodriguez, down in San Antonio. We call him our South Texas conservative because he is. And he gets around quite a bit down there. Knows a lot of people in the Border Patrol group. And that's one of the reasons I enjoy talking to him so much. But look, there's going to be a big change in the House down here, the Texas House, with a new speaker who I think is going to be getting along a lot better with the lieutenant governor, who's also the head of the Senate, and as well as Governor Abbott. And that issue of vouchers really divided not the Republican Party, because most of the Republicans were in favor of vouchers, but there was a group that didn't go along, and the governor went after that group in the primaries and wiped them out. I mean, he just took them out with primary challenges. So I think that message is quite clear that Governor Abbott and the lieutenant governor want vouchers, and I'm pretty sure they're going to get them this time because they now have the votes to do it, and they have a speaker who's going to be a lot more favorable to it. Thank you for listening. Everybody have a great weekend. This is Silvio Cantu in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.